The craze for Italian castrati reached its peak in the 18th century, with women shouting, "Long live the knife, the blessed knife," at opera houses, and not just because of how well the gelded men sang. 200 years earlier, the Pope in Rome had banned women from singing on stage or in churches, so a light bulb went off over some evil bastard's head. Prepubescent singers can hit magically high notes, and if snipped in a certain place before nature deepens their voices, they can develop those voices to sustain notes of such miraculous pitch and power that they can melt the coldest heart. The sudden surge of the Italian opera's popularity in the 1600s made the demand for such singers go through the roof, so up to 4,000 boys a year with promising voices were taking to bar detergents and drugged with opium, laying in ice baths and castrated. It is said that Firenze's Santa Maria Nova Hospital would do 8 boys at once. The boys that made it big became some of the most celebrated and affluent singers from Madrid to Moscow, and outdid even the most entitled female divas in their drama, vanity, extravagance, emotional obsessions, petty tantrums, and overall bitchiness, but many got away with it by virtue of their incredible sexual prowess. Their inability to ejaculate kept them going as long as their stamina would allow, and their sterility made them rather popular for affairs among the more fashionable ladies of high society. They were renowned as considerate lovers who made the woman the focus, and their fame spread far and wide. This wasn't guaranteed, of course. Much depended on the timing. If a boy was cut too early, before 10 years, he'd often grow up with a smooth, hairless body, rather feminine features, and no libido whatsoever. Those boys pruned after 10 might continue to develop physically and later on sustain an erection, but not necessarily. The closer to 12, the better. One famous Italian castrato, Consolino, took advantage of his feminine features with the English women in London. He would arrive at their houses to visit in drag and have an affair right under the husband's noses. The gay male opera fans also sought out castrati because some in Rome would cross-dress and offer to serve equally well as a man or a woman. They would say even Casanova was tempted in one of the most unusual gender-bending confusions in history. There are plenty of stories of men picking up women in bars and being horrified to discover they were men, but in this case, when he met a gorgeous teenage castrato named Bellino, he was bewitched, and when he grabbed the young man in a fit of passion, he was surprised to find a false penis. Bellino turned out to be a girl, Teresa Lanti, who, kind of like Julie Andrews and Victor Vittoria, had worn the disguise to get around the church's ban on female singers in Italy. Casanova didn't know whether to be relieved that he wasn't gay after all, or disappointed that he wouldn't find out. While the practice was officially banned in the early 19th century, it's still gone on under the radar, and talent scouts pay visits to orphanages in Europe. When they find a boy of exceptional talent, they ease the orphanage of the burden of caring for the child and take him away to begin his promising career in a school for young singers that will cut him and then mold him into a superstar, earning millions for his new owner. Basically, he's sold into slavery. There was one such owner, Hugo Tuttle, who felt it was the least he could do to give his boys one taste of what they'd never feel again. Inspired by what he'd read of ancient sword makers in Damascus who would offer poor men one last day of whoring and feasting and then temper a freshly made hot sword by plunging it into their guts, he would bring them to a prostitute and temper them with one glimpse of glory. That moment, that fumbling, nervous instant that was all over in a flash at the tender age of 11, was the most wonderful moment of the young Chandler's life, and it was followed quickly by the most horrible, the realization upon waking groggily hours later from opium dreams that it would never happen again. As he grew older, he had many, many trysts with beautiful women, but each one left him with the bitter emptiness of an unfulfilled man. He chased after every pleasure he could in the hopes that he might find one to equal that bright moment of ecstasy and joy, and other men's reassurances that no orgasm from sex is ever as good as the first failed to comfort him. Search as he might in drug dens and in seraglios and even churches, he found nothing to satisfy or console him. Thus his habit with a snub-nosed Smith & Wesson .38 and the single bullet. At least until the Chinese food resurrection wore off and the feeling that he was born again that lasted maybe 15-20 minutes tops, and then he was hungry again. Nothing impressed him. Nothing surprised him, not until this night in Antigua Guatemala, when he looked wide-eyed at Rabbit in a bar and said, "What?" And Rabbit grinned.